achieving what you set out to achieve, it can be.
And we are live up on YouTube. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, YouTube.
Hello, YouTube. How you guys doing?
It's going to be an interesting one.
Smooth 98.1 in association with Stanbic IBTC. Stanbic IBTC. It can be.
All right, going live now. Well, here we are, Lagos, Nigeria world. It is gone past 6:30, and this is Business Express on Smooth Breakfast. With me for a Thursday morning. Oh my gosh, is it Thursday already?
Oh, it is. Yes.
Which means, by the way, that Business Express today is brought to you by Stanbic IBTC. And joining me for today's episode, of course, is Rotus. Good morning, Rotus. How you doing?
I'm fine. Shokwe, good morning to you. Good morning to all our listeners out there, our viewers. I believe Muyiwa should be with us as we speak. Good to be with you all again.
Yes. Joining us for today, we have got the Regional Head of Equity Research for West Africa, Muyiwa Oni. Muyiwa, can you hear us? Good morning. Well, you know what, while we wait for Muyiwa to get on with us, let me give you all the different ways that you can contact us over the next few minutes. Okay, so you can send WhatsApp messages in to 0809 444 981. You can go over to YouTube where we are streaming live currently, youtube.com/smooth981FM Lagos. And there Muyiwa is. Good morning, Muyiwa. Make sure, by the way, to leave a comment up on the live stream and join the conversation that way. Muyiwa, how are you? Good morning.
Hello, thank you. Good morning. Good morning. How are you doing?
Great. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Great stuff.
All right, now, gentlemen, we've got the capital markets review, and yeah, it's good to have Stanbic IBTC on this. So tell us, take us through what's happening.
Yeah, I wanted to get Muyiwa's thoughts. Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, head of the World Trade Organization, was, talking about supply disruptions from the war going on in Ukraine, or rather trade implications. I think you said trade implications. I wanted to get your thoughts on what you think what the implications would be for trade with what Dr. Okonjo-Iweala is talking about.
I think if one looks at it from a commodities point of view, you could see disruption. So particularly with the sanctions, you could see disruptions in oil, for example. So if you think that Russia supplies about 10% of global oil, and if implications have a negative impact on that supply, that if the sanctions have a negative impact on that supply, then one could see how that has a far more negative impact on oil prices currently. So if you think about oil prices being over 110 currently, you could that could have a much more negative impact. And I suppose if one goes beyond oil as well, a few other commodities like wheat, for example, where Russia, Ukraine are major suppliers, and that could also have a negative impact as well. So I think from a trade perspective, she's still thinking of that equilibrium from a move of goods and services point of view, and how sanctions can have a negative impact on that and have further disruption. So, and even beyond the commodity prices, from a supply chain point of view, if more companies decide not to do business with Russia from a trade point of view, if logistics businesses decide to hold back, that could also have major negative implications as well.
Thank you for that. Yeah, it's companies left and right. Netflix, Disney, Harley Davidson, just everybody.
Everyone.
It's just cutting off.
In Russia. I mean, just everything that you can think of.
Left and right. All right, thank you for that, Muyiwa. The stock market, I want to get to the stock market. That's the Nigerian exchange. We're up 10% so far this year. Market was down yesterday a bit, but what would you attribute to the returns we've seen so far?
So I think it's been more company specific based. So if you look at the beginning of the year, for example, there are a few companies that ran quite hard. So Boa Foods, for example, was one of those. You saw a few other names as well that were proxies for foreign portfolio investors trying to get out of the market. So if you consider Seplat, for example, that's run hard because of its dual trade nature. So investors that couldn't take their money out of Nigeria, weren't comfortable staying on the queue, use that as a proxy. We've seen a few other names as well, like in the banking sector. ETI seems to have run hard. I think for the first time they seem to be, and so there's that. If you look across, there's been some specific names that seem to have driven this very strong run, because we're going into the year, recalling our strategy notes that we published in January, our view was that based on a bottom-up perspective, the market looked like it had a potential upside of 10%. So within our own basket of names that we covered, a few names that presented upside close to 50, but if one did an aggregate. And so looking at that point, our view was 10% looked like a reasonable return for the year. We're already around that 10. And the reality is that market is still volatile, so you could still see some pullback. We could then end up at that 10%, end up much higher, or even lower as well, depending on what happens as we move closer to the end of the year.
Great stuff. The banking sector, I think we saw a bit of a dip. I think it was down by little over 1%. Since you mentioned that we've been on a bit of a run, would you attribute what we saw with banking stocks yesterday as what, profit taking, or how would you describe it? Okay.
Well,
Sope, can you hear me? Am I frozen?
No, looks like we have just a slight delay with Muyiwa, but hey, This is where you get to make sure you join the conversation, okay? So 0809 444 981. But it's quite interesting. So what we're talking about right now. Yeah. So by the way, Rotus, I know something I wanted to talk about with Russia was looking at cereal and wheat prices and whether or not they would go up. And then something that speaks to my soul because of our palm oil high commission that I still remember. Palm oil futures trading up as well was what I saw from the news, and Indonesia is going to be where everyone is looking because they're the major exporter of palm oil right now, and Nigeria nowhere to be found. Yeah,
we used to be ahead of Indonesia.
We were responsible for 43%.
Exactly, and we just dipped. And it's a shame, you know. The thing is, they call it the Dutch disease. The moment we discovered crude oil, everything else just was on the back burner, and we just poured resources and poured all of our focus into exporting crude. And now all these other things that could have given us a diverse. I mean, look at Russia, right? Russia is a perfect example. Big in oil, big in gas, in wheat. I mean, they're big, you know what I'm saying? So they're so big that Europe is, hesitant to try and completely cut them off from oil. Although I hear that they are boycotting their oil price.
Oh no, they have now said we don't care. We're going full scale on this now.
Exactly.
We don't care how bad it gets.
Yeah. I mean, so you've got to sell different. You have to have a diversified export base in order to bring in foreign exchange. So the palm oil example is I mean, that is something we've lost ground there. And now check this out. Poland needs coal, right? Poland gets its, I understand, I think they get coal imports from Russia, right? They're turning to Australia to try to see if they can get coal from there. But Australia said because of environmentalists, because of this climate change push, a lot of their investments towards coal has come down. So they don't think that they will be able to be a substitute for Russia to provide coal to Poland. Now, I bring that up because the whole climate change movement, COP27 is going to be in Egypt this year. COP26 was in Glasgow, Scotland last year. This whole big push towards renewables, cleaner energy is reducing the focus on what they call dirty fuels, fossil fuels, which we are a big provider of. So this singular focus on crude oil that has attention away from palm oil and other items that we put in export is now a problem because we can't depend on big oil and gas companies to invest that much in crude going forward. So we really have to turn to, I mean, we are one of the top 10 in gas. We have to we talked about that with on Tuesday. We've got to put more efforts and money, that's the main one, into full-scale production of those other commodities. That's the thing. So, and I think about palm, as you mentioned, palm oil can be soap, cooking items. I mean, it's so vast. Muyiwa, you're back.
Yeah, creams as well, I think.
Exactly,
Muyiwa. So before we go back to the conversation, we actually have a message in from Gilbert Musa from Festac, who says, one way we can assess the performance of the Nigerian Stock Exchange is to look at the data of individual participation from 1997 to 2007, and from 2010 till 2020. Has individual participation increased?
Muyiwa, what would you say? That's a good question. Participation in the markets, foreign investors seem to have dropped back a bit over the last couple of years.
Yeah, so foreign investment has dropped, or foreign investor participation has dropped considerably. If you look at latest data, so last year's numbers showed participation less than 30%, versus historically that participation used to be around 50%. And so now you're seeing more domestic participation. I think from an individual's point of view, so I don't have the data, so it's difficult to tell if we've seen more retail individual participation from an individual's point of view versus percentages. But if one looks at it from a percentage point of view, you continue to see more institutional participation. And I think that's understandable. So if you think about where we were in the 90s, we didn't have the pension industry yet. Now we have a very large and strong pension industry that still has assets growing as well. On the non-pension side, you've seen far more non-pension assets build up as well. So if you look at SEC data, you see quite a number of those funds that we didn't have in the past that we have now, from the ethical focus funds to more growth or yielding type funds, some that track sectors, and ETF type funds as well that we didn't have before. So I think it seems from an institutional point of view, you're seeing the market evolve somewhat, even though I think what's clear is that there's still room for more growth, more participation as well. And even from a number of companies side as well, that clearly still needs to evolve further. So more Nigerian listings, more companies on there, more liquidity even from the companies on the exchange as well.
All right, so we've got a couple of minutes left to the show. So what's our big, what else can we talk about for now?
Well, I was talking about this on personal finance yesterday. I want to throw it to Muyiwa. Muyiwa, would you see the stock exchange as a wealth creator? How would you describe it? Is it a wealth creator?
It is actually. And I think, so I was sitting down with my colleague yesterday, just looking at Zenith Bank's numbers. I was looking at potential dividend that was going to be paid to some of the core investors, and the size or the amount was quite boggling. So individuals going away with about 9 billion naira of dividend income. And
I'm listening.
Yeah. I think that's clearly wealth creator if you want to look at it from that point of view, right? I don't think there's any argument about that. I suppose it's more positioning. So as long as you're positioning the right names that you know are creating value. So an MTN, for example, over the past few years that it's been listed, I think it's clear that it's still creating value for shareholders and for investors. So I think I'd argue that it's how you position in the market that really determines that ability to create wealth and value.
All right. And remember, folks, if you want to get advice from Stanbic IBTC on how to position yourself to those stocks, I think it's callme@stanbicibtc.com. That's the email to send. Callme@stanbicibtc.com if you want to get proper advice from folks like Muyiwa on the equities market. Chokwe, is that it? We're out of time.
We are out of time. Yes.
Thank you.
But, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Chokwe. Thank you.
Thank you both. And make sure you can continue the conversation, by the way. Use the hashtag BusinessExpress981. Check out Rotus at Rotancode. Check out Stanbic IBTC as well. Pull them into the conversation. And if you want to just go from @Smooth981FM, you will be able to get all that information as well. And you'll be able to get links to Rotus. Okay? All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Right, thank you.
All right. And it's going to be Business Express tomorrow.